I live here at Ananda Village, and I have been living here for 6 years. And I came here because I was asked to by Joseph Barat Cornell to work with him in flow learning and sharing nature, and obviously because of my love for Master and living in community. When I was 15 years old, I went on an 2-week outdoor nature trip. And on that trip, I had an experience that I will remember the whole rest of my life. I was going down the river, a rapid, through the paddling down the river, and they had the exhilaration of going through the rapid and the focused attention as I went through that rapid. And then after we safely got through and were in calm water, I went off to the beach and I sat there, and the water was perfectly still in front of me. There was the canyon wall with the light on it, the evening sun, and I just felt the greatest peace I had ever known. And that experience is what inspired me and realized the importance of using nature to help people feel a deeper connection with their higher self and with God. And I realized the importance of, at this moment, of making experiences with people when we're teaching, making the experience profound, making it vibrant, making it alive. If we look back at our time in school, we'll remember that there are times that we really remember and there are times that we don't remember at all. The things that we don't remember are when material, when information, when subjects are presented dryly, when it's just based on information, and when it's just based on facts. But we remember when our teachers presented information in such a way that it touches not just our minds, but it touches our hearts in a very deep way. And this is the ideal of what flow learning is trying to do. Trying to create a memorable and profound experience when we're teaching, so that when people leave, they say, "Ah, that was amazing." And most teaching, traditionally, is about you talk to somebody and you impart information. And oftentimes, like I said, we forget it because it's based on facts. It's not touching us on a deep soul level. And because we live into Apara Yuga right now, we know that it's an ascending age of energy. And from that ascension of energy, we're going to be using more ways of using energy when we teach. So using energy methods of teaching to awaken the energy in others so that they have that experience of higher consciousness. And so with flow learning, what we're trying to do in people when we're teaching is we're trying to awaken their energy, just like in our practices, we awaken the energy in the spine. We're trying to awaken people's energy and enthusiasm, bring that energy and enthusiasm up to a place of calmness. So their consciousness is energetic and calm. And from that calmness, they're in a state of mind where they can receive the information the most profoundly. And from there, that raised energy and calmness, we can then insert our message. We can insert that, what we're trying to give them, and they're able to receive it much more abundantly. If we're teaching and we're sharing our path, we know it's a wonderful message. Master came to change the world. He was willing to conquer. He changed Western civilization. Now he came to change the world. Swami said he is the avatar of this new age. And because of that, we have to share his message not dryly, not without enthusiasm. We have to share it with aliveness, with vibrancy, with practicality. We need to share it like we really mean it. And we need to share it with the same energy that Master shared it when he was alive. When he used to run out the stage as he'd awaken people's enthusiasm, he would share it with power, and when people listened, they were there with him. And so whether we're teaching Master's teachings or not, maybe we're teaching other things. Maybe we're teaching marketing, maybe we're teaching business skills. But if we can teach it in a way that's dynamic and gets people engaged, then we can be more successful. We've all been in classes where people are just talking and we're just kind of falling asleep. And there's other times when we're kind of leaning into experience. We want to be teaching in such a way, presenting our information in such a way that people are leaning into the experience. And they say, "Oh, that was amazing." Most people are like a cup that's overturned, their consciousness. So when we're trying to pour information in, the information is just running off the sides because they're restless, because they're distracted, because they're tired, because they're just not able to receive the information. It said that people have 300 self-talk thoughts a minute in their own mind. So if those thoughts are going on, and we're trying to give information or give an experience, how much is actually staying in? And so what flow learning is trying to do is trying to turn the cup of their consciousness up, so when we pour in the experience we want to give them, they can truly receive that information. And this is important. There is a story that Bharat tells in his book, Om, the Melody of Love, that it was during the Great Depression, and 20 men eagerly waited in the telegraph office to get a job. And to pass the time and to kind of relax, these men, most of them talked and joked amongst each other. And there was one man who just sat very quietly near the door to the office where they were giving interviews. And all of a sudden, that man who was quiet walked inside the office, and a few minutes later, the telegraph operator said, "We've hired somebody for the job. Thank you all for coming." The other men were like, "What just happened here?" Well, while all the men were talking, the telegraph operator typed out in Morse code, "If you can hear this message, come in and accept the job." Turns out there was only one man who was quiet enough to hear the message. So if we want people to really hear, not just hear our message, but absorb our message and have that message change their lives, we need to get them into a receptive state of consciousness, into a calm frame of mind where all the other distractions are gone and they can be fully absorbed in the message that we're trying to give them. Flow learning is like a ladder. We start at the base of the ladder, and each rung up, we're trying to give them, if you walk up a ladder, you can see a more expansive view. And once they get to the top, they can really see an expanse of the surrounding area. We want to start with where people are in their understanding and in their consciousness, and help them go step by step into deeper, more profound understanding of our message and an experience. There's a story of the famous American botanist George Washington Carver, and he was once asked to create walking paths at a college, and he said, "I'm happy to create these paths." And a few weeks later, the president of the college said, "Why didn't you create these paths?" And he said, George Washington Carver said, I'm studying where people walk first, naturally, and that's where I'm going to create the walking paths, rather than simply creating on a piece of paper, and because it looks good on paper, that's what I'm going to do. And oftentimes when we're doing a lesson for somebody or we're teaching a class, what we do is we say, "Oh, this looks good," rather than going with the flow, seeing where people naturally walk. So flow learning is based on universal principles of awareness. And if you can raise people's awareness, again, you can put them in that receptive state of mind where they can truly absorb the information that you're trying to receive. So the goal of flow learning is to give people memorable, profound experiences that change their consciousness, just like that experience that I had when I was on my outdoor trip going through the rapids and along the river. And so there's a Chinese proverb that says, "If you tell me something, I'll forget. If you show me, I may remember. But if you involve me, I'll understand." We're trying to involve the whole person's consciousness with flow learning so that they can truly understand, not just on the intellectual level, but with their heart. And they can understand the message we're trying to receive because it's being presented so clearly and so dynamically. It's going to change them. So flow learning that Joseph Barat Cornell created, he created it as a nature educator, and he was working with students, and he wanted to get students involved in to love nature, and he realized that his activities work better and his teaching worked better if it was presented in a certain sequence, and he realized that this sequence has to do with the subtle aspects of human nature. And so the first stage of flow learning is called Awaken Enthusiasm. So if you're teaching a class, that's the first thing you want to do. is Awaken Enthusiasm. It's like a dam where the floodgates have just been raised and the water just comes rushing in. Well, we want to strong with a strong current of energy. So if in the person's mind or experience in the moment, if their consciousness is not quite, if it's restless, if it's distracted, if they're tired, the strong flow of energy will wash all of those eddies of distraction away. And so you might start with something like the superconscious living exercise, the Awaken Readies, to get people up and get people moving. There's an exercise that I want to do with you that you might like to try. It's one from Joseph Cornell's book, Sharing Nature with Children, that I've adapted for this. So let's say you're teaching a class on the autobiography of a yogi, and people have read it, and you want to give them a fun way of starting off the class that are going to get them interested and get their enthusiasm awakened. So this is called Noses. So if you've read Autobiography of a Yogi, hopefully you'll know what this is. So what you do is I'm going to give you clues to a certain character in Autobiography of a Yogi. And if you think you know what it is, you put your finger on your nose. And if you don't, then you can just take your finger off. So first clue, I'll give you 6 clues, and they'll get easier as you go. Clue number 1. This person's home is near Tarakeshwar. So if you think you know what it is, you put your finger on your nose. I'll give you a little moment to think. Clue number 2. This person healed Mukunda of a pain in his back. Clue number 3. Told Mukunda he should have a little room where he can close the door and be alone, and that this would be his cave where he would find the kingdom of God. And if you think you know, you put your finger on your nose. This person meditated 18 hours a day for 24 years, and then 20 hours a day for 25 years. Two more clues. This person is a disciple of Lahiri Mahashai. And then last clue. This person is known as the sleepless saint. So if you haven't guessed it already, this is Ram Gopal Muzumdar. So I could have simply told you the facts of him and give you stories, but by providing a sense of mystery, it makes it more dynamic and engaging. Another activity that you could do to awaken people's enthusiasm and get the group going is you can get different pictures of saints, and what you can do is you can get a picture of, say, Krishna, and you can collect a whole bunch of different pictures and put the pictures and clip them on people's backs, and then you have people mingle around, and they have to ask yes or no questions to try and identify the picture of the saint. So you might say, am I an autobiography of a yogi? And the person says, yes. Okay, do I live in India? Yes. And then you just keep asking questions to identify if that person, and then when they think they really know it, they say, oh, that's Jesus. And then they can take their picture off and put it on the front. So it's a great way of having people get moving. Again, it creates a sense of mystery and awakened enthusiasm. And so often when we're working with people, within the first few minutes they decide if they like something or not. So we want to start with energy. We want to start with joy. Just like before we start our meditation, we energize. We want to awaken that energy. So with awakening enthusiasm, the first stage of flow learning, we want to draw that energy into people's body so that we can then focus it and give them the experience we want to give them. The second stage of flow learning is called focus attention. So it's not just enough to have high energy, because people can have high energy and they can be very restless and distracted. So we want to take the high energy we just created in the awakened enthusiasm stage, And we want to bring it to a fine focus attention. And this stage doesn't have to be very long. It could be a couple minutes. So let's say, for example, that we're leading a class and we start with the super conscious living exercises. We get them doing Awaken Ready. Then we have them instantly sit down and we have them close their eyes and we just have them watch their breath for a couple of minutes. Only 2 or 3 minutes, and instantly it gets them calm, it gets their attention calm and focused. It can be quick. Another activity that you might want to do to focus people's attention is you can go out into nature, and because all of nature is a reflection, is part of God, Om is part of God, Om is God. And what you can do is you can have them quietly, you can have them lift their hands, and every time they hear a different sound, they can put a finger up. And you can have them remind them that all the sounds they hear comes from Om. And all the sounds they hear is a part of God. And again, they can take that and absorb those beautiful sounds into themselves. So focus attention, we're creating the stage to get calmness. Because like I said in the beginning, we're trying to bring that energy up, bring it to a state of calmness, and from that calm energy, we can insert our message, and they'll be able to receive it because there aren't distractions there. So after we awaken their enthusiasm, focus their attention, the third stage is where we give people a direct experience. And this is really where we're trying to give people the main message of what we want them to know. In nature education, this is where we give people an experience where they feel like they're absorbed in nature, where they feel like the boundaries between themselves and nature vanish. There have been so many times when I can remember one time I was in Australia doing one of Bharat's nature activities, a very simple one. And this lady said, I felt like I was melting into oneness. And that's pretty powerful because, you know, the goal of yoga is to realize our oneness with everything. And if people can realize that with a simple nature activity, and it can change their consciousness, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to change people's consciousness. We're not just trying to give them information they might forget. We want to give them an experience that they will truly remember. And that's why it's so important that when we're presenting our classes, we're doing with energy, we're doing with dynamic vibrancy, so that when they leave, they go, wow, I'm changed, even if they don't say that out loud. There was a time, there was a group of Chinese girls here at the Expanding Light, and I was asked to lead them on a nature session. And the whole time they were here, they're talking on their phones and their devices, and they were quite distracted. I think there were more there than they were at Ananda. They were in their devices. And so what I did, I had to realize that I needed to get them excited about what we're going to do and get them calm enough so that when I gave them an experience, they could absorb it. And so what I wanted to do was take them up to the Sunset Ridge, where we have a beautiful, expansive view of the Sierra Mountains, and the sunset is just gorgeous. So what I did was I put a blindfold on them, and I led them through the trees up to the top of the ridge where the sunset was. And so by leading them blindfold and having them be in silence, it immediately gave them that excitement of mystery of not knowing what was ahead, and instantly calmed them as well, because their sight was gone and they had to focus all of their attention on their footsteps. And so instantly brought their state of consciousness into that vibrant awareness. So I led them up to the Sunset Ridge, and I lined them up. I waited till the sunset was beautifully perfect. And I took off their blindfolds and I went, oh. And for moments, they just were like in breathless ecstasy. And that experience would not have been as powerful if they would have went up there and they were on their devices, because their mind would have been distracted. I cleared their mind of clutter and I presented that experience. You know, often when Swamiji, our master, would be talking, when they were talking, rarely did they talk monotone like this, because when you talk monotone like this, you know, people might fall asleep. But they would put energy into it. Our Swami would tell a joke, get everybody laughing, and right after that joke, his voice would be very calm, and he'd say, that's why we need to love God so deeply. Just by that joke, by putting his energy up, by raising his voice, by putting power into it, he awakens people's enthusiasm. And by calming his voice, he focuses our attention and then gives our message and can really absorb into us. So with direct experience, we want to give them a touch of peace, a touch of light, an experience that just vibrates through their body that they remember. And so there's an activity that you might like to do if you're teaching our teachings, and it's called A Lake is Like a Mind. This is from Bharat's book, The Sky and Earth Touched Me. And this is an excellent activity to demonstrate the power of meditation and the restless mind. And so what you do is you go to a little body of water. It could be a lake, it could be a river, this could be a puddle in the ground. And you have your participants collect 6 to 8 stones. And you have them at that puddle. And what you do, you have them focus on nature before them, on beauty of nature. And if once their mind starts to wander, thinking of, oh, I have to do this, or oh, I forgot to do this, they throw that rock in the puddle, and it creates ripples to reflect the ripples that were just created in your mind by being distracted. And they watch those ripples go out to reflect what just happened in the mind, but then they also watch those ripples go back to calmness. And that reflects your mind going back to calmness and being focused on the present moment. And this is a very powerful activity because, as Master said so many times, that our mind is like a lake. When the winds of restlessness are whipped up in our consciousness, the waves are very high when we're living the ego. But when we start to calm ourselves, when we start to live more in God, when we start to live more for others, the water becomes more calm. And from that calmness, we can see things more clearly. So that's called A Lake is Like a Mind. That can be found in Bharat's book, The Sky and Earth Touched Me. And so after people have an experience, and I think we've all had direct experience that were powerful, where again, we felt like our consciousness was changed. And maybe it was reading autobiography, maybe it was hearing Master or Swami talk for the first time, maybe it was coming to Ananda or meditating for the first time. We've had that experience that changed people. There was a study that was done many years ago, and it was a 25-year study to see what gave people in life optimal experiences. Those experiences that we never forget, that we say, oh, if only I could relive that experience again. And this man did a 25-year study around the world of different people, ages, and cultures to see what were the elements that allowed that experience to happen, that changed their lives. And he found there were 2 elements, and this is very interesting. He said their energy was very high and it was very focused. And those are the first 2 stages of flow learning. And these people could be doing martial arts. He said that the activities where people got into a state of, he called it flow. He said they were doing either yogic practices or martial art practices. But people could be doing art where they felt like time and space vanished and they were just kind of one with what they're doing. They could be doing a performance of some kind, any type of art and craft, but they could be rock climbing and mountain climbing, but they were so absorbed in their experience. And so that's what we're trying to do when we present our teachings to people. We want to get them absorbed in the experience. Whether we're lecturing, we want to awaken people's enthusiasm and focus their attention. Or whether we're doing different activities, we want to make sure that when we look at them, we can see that they're there with us. We don't want to see them like this, or kind of like this. We want to see that they're there. So no matter how you do it, how can you keep their energy high and focused and dynamic? So the last stage of flow learning, so we have awaken enthusiasm, focus attention, direct experience, and last stage is called share inspiration. And this is a very important stage. Goethe said that a joy shared is a joy doubled. So that when we share something, if we're excited about something, if we're excited about the teachings or something we just found or a new experience, when we share it, people can feel our enthusiasm for something and they get excited, but it also reinforces that experience and doubles it within ourselves, and we are able to experience it more. And so let's say, for example, you just gave people an experience of meditation for the first time. And you have them meditate, you do a guided meditation. Let's say that's the direct experience. and then you see the calmness on their faces, and then you want to have them share their experience. And this is, you can just very simply have people go around and share, or you can do an activity like close your eyes, and from our class today, I want you to come up with a snapshot picture of what you most remembered. That picture could be something that was said, it could be an activity we did, or what was that picture? And then you have people think about it and they can share. This is important because a lot of times people have experiences, but they don't realize how powerful that experience is. And giving people time to share helps them to reinforce that experience they just had in themselves and to clarify it by sharing with others. Another activity that you could do to help people share their experience, this is one I learned when I was in high school. And we had to write a letter to ourselves. And we wrote a letter to ourselves. So I said, "Dear Sundara, Greg, I don't want to forget this experience. I want to do music. I want to work with the environment. I hope I don't ever forget this girlfriend I have. If I get this letter 10 years, I have to call her." Well, I'm not going to do that now anymore. But you can have people, after they have a powerful experience, you don't want them to forget it, right? You don't want them to leave your class saying, "Oh, that was great," but then they go back to their lives and they go back to a normal life. You want their life to be changed. And so with this activity called Write a Letter, in the moment they're feeling inspired. They write that inspiration, and then you can send it to them 3 months later, or 6 months later, or a year later, or in my case, 10 years later, so that when they receive that letter, they read it with the same energy and inspiration from the experience that they just had. So flow learning is really our path. Awaken Enthusiasm would be like doing the energization exercises. Focus attention would be like when we're doing Hong Sa, because Hong Sa is a technique of concentration. Direct experience would be after we drop the technique of Hong Sa, we sit in the stillness, in the peace, and absorb ourselves in that peace. That would be the direct experience stage. And then the sharing inspiration stage would be, well, we want to share their experience with others. Well, if we have peace, if we experience peace, if we experience joy, we want to try and share that with other people. Or we share healing prayers. We share the blessings that we have received with others. And so, flow learning, if you were to get one thing out of this webinar on flow learning, the main thing is you want to try and think to yourself when you're teaching, how can you keep the energy high and focused? And how can you give them an experience that is creative, that's dynamic, that will truly be memorable for them? Just last night, I was talking to a friend, and there was a class here at Ananda. And I said, "How was your class?" And she said, "So-and-so is such a good teacher. She knows how to keep her audience awake and interested, and she brought enthusiasm." And that's flow learning. And so I hope you were able to get something out of this little talk. And if you ever are interested more in flow learning or sharing nature or these principles of energy, you can email me at greg@sharingnature.com, and I'm happy to talk with you more. The principles of flow learning are based on, as I said, Joseph Brock Cornell's Sharing Nature work. And you can go to our website, sharingnature.com, and learn more about all of this. So God bless you, and thank you so much.